All right, everybody, welcome. This is the second year that we have invited some of our most accomplished alumni. Once in a long time ago for some and much more recent past. For others, they were sitting just like you in one of those seats, and they were all Soc majors. And then fantastic things happened to them, and they're here to tell you about how they leveraged their Soc degree into whatever career they started off with. So what I'm going to ask them is to quickly introduce themselves, tell you who they are, what they're doing, and then we'll ask them to give us a short trajectory, 5-6 minutes trajectory, or shorter if it can, about how they got from UCLA to their current position. And so the thing that they all have in common is that we're all Soc majors. So we're going to start on that side.
This works.
Perfect.
Hello. My name is Jim Lynett. I live in Paso, Robles, which is halfway between here and San Francisco. Yeah, I don't know how to work these things very well, but I use my teacher's voice usually. I am currently the executive director of the Teachers Union in Paso Robles. It's one of the 3 merged unions in the state. The other one is UESF in San Francisco and UTLA here. Ours is small. We only have about 350 teachers, but we have a lot of energy, and I've been past president, site representative, vice president, all the different offices, so I'll get to my UCLA days a little bit later. So,
excellent.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Denise Jackson, and I'm honored to be here. I'm the first person in my family to attend a UC college, and I never imagined I'd be here in front of you distinguished students. And I own an insurance planning firm. I specialize in strategic health insurance planning, and I think that's the great thing about sociology is you can go anywhere you want and do anything you want aside from probably being a surgeon. So I'm looking forward to telling you about the journey.
Hi, my name's Guliasi. I'd like to begin by just getting a show of hands to find out what year you each are in. So how many freshmen do we have? Raise your hand. Sophomores? Juniors? Seniors? Okay, the majority of you have already been here for, I guess, a couple of years. Is there anybody, the juniors or seniors, anybody who was a transfer student came in as a junior? Okay, so you're kind of hopeless. You guys, some of the messages that I'm going to deliver are really, I think, aimed a little bit more toward the lower class people. And I want to kind of leave you with 2 messages. Let me say a little bit about myself first. I am now working in the energy field. I've worked in that field for about 30 years and done a lot of different things. I started out as, after my degree in sociology, off to graduate school with a career I thought to be a university professor. And you know, the job market wasn't great at the time, and I decided I didn't want to leave the Bay Area where I was in graduate school, so I basically found a job in the energy industry kind of by chance, by luck. And I've stayed in that field for, you know, the past 30 or so years. I currently work for a private equity firm that's in the infrastructure space. The work I'm doing right now has more to do with building an electric transmission business. And I've done a lot of work across the sector in renewable energy. A lot of my time was spent in regulatory affairs, governmental affairs, and public affairs. So the 2 things I want to leave you with are these. Number 1, make this big university, this big school, a small school. I think the way you're going to succeed is if you find yourselves in small groups attached to faculty members or other students, your fellow students. The second thing is network. Networking is extremely important. Some of the jobs I got just happened because I know people, and things just kind of fell in my lap. I don't think this university in particular, but most public universities, even some of the best private universities, Princeton, Harvard, don't do enough with their alumni to help their graduates find a place in the world, in the work world. So you need to develop networks, and you need to develop your faculty networks and your fellow student networks, and I think that's going to help you and propel you wherever you decide to go in a career. Glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eydie Grossman. Let's see. I can't say I really knew what I wanted to do when I graduated with my sociology degree from UCLA, so I sort of fell into a position working for a nonprofit organization in administration, working for their accounting department. And then through that experience working there, I kind of knew I liked working in a business environment. It was a very well-run nonprofit organization, so after being 2 years there, I decided to get my MBA. And even after I got my MBA, I wasn't 100% sure what in business I wanted to do, except I knew marketing was a focus area that I was interested in. I think that was sort of like the sociology part. It was like combining sociology and business in some weird way. I wasn't a typical business school person where I was really strong in finance and accounting, but I liked the social sciences and I liked the business environment. So I kind of feel like sociology and then a little bit of work experience directed me into getting an MBA. And then I landed into a technology company doing marketing for them for a couple years, which then propelled me to subsequent positions in other small and large technology companies. And then got tired of that after 10 years and then made a switch back into nonprofit, actually doing development work, which is essentially working with philanthropists to get them to contribute to the cause. So that's where I am now, and happy to be here.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Wulkan, and I started my college career at the University of Cincinnati as a freshman with a major in geology. And then by the time I moved to Los Angeles and came to UCLA, I took a couple of social classes, and I was hooked. After graduation, I got my master's in social work, and since that time, I've had a variety of jobs, most recently working in a psychiatric unit at a local hospital, where actually I've been for 28 years, doing psychotherapy with adolescents, adults, and their families, and also training interns to become therapists. I also have a private practice, and I also have done a lot of work through the Department of Mental Health, Los Angeles County. And I give you all of that just to say that the sociology degree has played a part in all of that, and it's really been the thread that has connected all of those positions. Thank you.
Do you want to elaborate on specifically on how sociology has helped you in these positions? That would be my next question. Anyway.
Sure.
So you sort of put yourself in
Sure.
that position to discuss that.
Well, when I think about the sociology classes that I took while I was here, they all had to do with the study of people in the context of families, societies, that kind of thing. And that's really what I parlayed into all of the jobs that I've had, because I really, I loved that. And while there are many things you can do with a social degree, including what I did in teaching and law, this really was my thing. And so I've just continued working with people.
Excellent. Anybody else wants to comment on how sociology is still relevant in there?
In my case, I had a dream to be a district attorney since I was 7 years old. And so I think in my case, I had wanted to advocate for victims of crime and make my mark in the world by helping place a positive closure for victims, as well as, make the world a slightly better place with what little dent you can make when you've got so much crime going around. So sociology is great for government jobs, judge, police work. I think also what happened to me is I veered off that path. I wanted to be that DA up into law school, and I met a friend who was 26 years old, doing very well for himself, owned an insurance practice, and living the life I'd hoped to have, owned his home, car, boats. And I learned in law school that you can freeze your spot, and after 1 year, you could still come back if things didn't work out. So I looked on the Fortune 100 list, and what I think I had wanted to find, go bigger with the insurance practice than just working with this friend who I did work with for a while. When you look at this Fortune 100 list, I really encourage you guys to pull that up if you're curious about some of the leading firms in the nation, because what's nice about that, if you look on that list, you will see that with a sociology degree, you can do almost any one of those 100 fields, and they also list the salary, that the average salary that career's paying. So I used that as my starting point, and what I found with that degree is the world was limitless. I didn't look at that list and feel there was anything I couldn't do.
Excellent.
Yes. Is this working? Yes.
Yeah.
My sociology degree led me to want to see other societies and other cultures. After I graduated, I got married to my lovely wife, and we went in the Peace Corps. We spent 2 years in Morocco. It was a fantastic experience, language-wise. They have fantastic language teachers. And that was kind of our goal, was to learn as many languages as possible and use that. And so we got to travel through Europe. We just spent a lot of time in Morocco, of course. We made friends with all of there were 100 of us Peace Corps volunteers in Morocco at that time. It was 1977 to 79. So I've got that exposure to other cultures and societies. And then when I came back, I started to get into teaching because I wanted to give that experience in secondhand, at least, to students and have them get excited about other people, other cultures, and other ways of viewing the world. I think Americans in general are very insulated from other cultures for the most part. Probably not you guys, but America in general. And I always felt the mission of the Peace Corps was one that I really supported. Came back from that and worked for a year as a substitute teacher. And then a friend who was in the Peace Corps was the director of the American Language Institute in Oporto, Portugal. So my wife and I got jobs there. We went over to Portugal for 3 years, from 1980 to 1983. And when I came back, I became a bilingual elementary school teacher at Canoga Park Elementary, which you may know in the Valley. And then I transferred, well, I went up to Paso Robles and found the same job there and got active in the teachers union. But I think that sociology in general, the great thing about it was that exposure to other cultures, other ideas, and other ways of looking at the world. And I felt that when I traveled and went places, it changed me more than it did the people that I met overseas. I learned a lot about those people and their cultures, and consequently, I think, gave that experience to my students, hopefully.
Anybody else?
I think it was Emil Durkheim who called sociology the mother of the social sciences. I started out really as a psychology major, and when I was in high school and then in college, those were the years of the Vietnam War and the anti-war movement. So I became involved in Students for Democratic Society and was active here at UCLA in the anti-war movement. And I can tell you some good war stories afterwards. But I found myself gravitating more toward politics. And you know, what I found at UCLA was if you studied psychology, you were in the biological. I guess it was considered a biological science, and just the place was filled with pre-med students who cared about getting into medical school. And over in the political science department, there were a lot of pre-law students who cared about getting grades. Why? Just to get into law school. And I felt that what was missing in those two departments was the quest for learning. And so sociology was the department where I could actually learn things. So I ended up with 2 minors, though they didn't recognize minor degrees in my day, but I did have a minor degree in psychology and another one in political science. But this department was my home. What I found about sociology was that you know, as my colleagues up here said, you can do anything with sociology. The problem is that in the world at large, people don't think about sociology as a discipline. It may be a major that somebody may study in college, but you're not a political scientist, you're not a physicist, you're not a computer scientist, you're not a psychologist. What are you? Well, what this gives you is the sort of the breadth of knowledge and even the depth of knowledge that you could apply wherever you go. But I think the rub is that you're going to have to kind of find a way to make a mark for yourself and draw on all the skills and all the disciplines that you can learn here in sociology.
I think that was really well put, and I would just echo that. Again, that sociology degree is so broad that the good part about that is that you're not pigeonholed and you can really pursue any career that you want to. The downside of it is that you have to explain to someone why you're qualified for a particular job when you may not have training, quote unquote, for that particular job. But what I found is that, and I just recall sitting in my classes and learning about, principles of why people in a society trust one another. Why does everybody stop at a red light? Why don't people run red lights? I mean, some people do, but, there's an order to society that just sort of works. And those kinds of questions really make you think about how people work together and how systems function. And I think either sociology attracts people who have a certain sense of curiosity and they want to study these kinds of things, or vice versa. People are attracted to it by their nature. But I think that kind of critical thinking is really important in anything you do, and understanding other cultures, as was said before, and people. Any organization you're going to work for, you're going to be working with all different kinds of people, and those who can work with different kinds of people and understand those kinds of people, work around them, through them, between them, are the ones who are really successful. And that's one thing that I've really taken with me, is that the people who don't have the broad sense of understanding how people in an organization work and what it takes to work with different kinds of people are the ones that struggle more. So I think the amount to which you leverage the knowledge that you gain through this degree in an organizational setting is really going to help you.
Okay. So several of the people here will be looking for jobs in the next year or the next couple of years. So from where you are right now, what kind of advice would you give them? What kind of suggestions would you, I mean, obviously you all have moved to different kinds of jobs and you have emphasized the importance of contacts, but are there things that you would advise in terms of specific issues that students should know about? Sure. Jim.
I would echo what Les said about networking. That's very important. Finding people who are like-minded, volunteer, can do as many in the area that you're interested in. The other thing that I would say is the most important that I've seen is another language. I know that I got hired because of my bilingual cross-cultural language acquisition credential that I got from the state of California. I know that if you speak Mandarin or you speak Korean or you speak Chinese or whatever, Spanish, whatever it is, that's going to open doors for you that are not open to other people. And so the more languages you can acquire, the more valuable you're going to become to whatever organization you're a part of. So I would say that's very important. And communication, of course. Being able to speak and write particularly effectively. I know when I was learning Spanish, my Spanish teacher made me write in Spanish 10 pages of Spanish every single day. And he would read it and critique it, and it really helped me, but it was a lot of work. And it's going to take work, but it will open a lot of doors for you.
I started my business when I was 24 years old, and I rose really quickly in that career. Actually, today, I never thought I'd sit here and be able to say, you know, we have millions of dollars in investments, my husband and I, all self-made. So the positive thing, you can do it quickly. You don't need years and years under your belt. What you do need to pick the career from the beginning when you're young, you need to stick with it. You need to become better than your competition. You need to become reliable. You need to be somebody who follows through with people, because you will never close a deal if those papers and numbers are not organized and you're not following up with people regularly. And I attribute a large part of our success to being organized and being analytical and following up with people. I think another thing, aside from, well, interning. Interning is a big thing here. I interned my junior year I found it through the Career Center for the head deputy district attorney in the Santa Monica courthouse, and that allows you, interning allows you to get a real world feel for the job. Is this what you want to do? So that you don't chew into valuable years when you're out of college and you really need to be climbing that ladder, building that reputation I talked about. So interning, not only do you get real world experience, but you taste the demand that's going to be placed on you. Can you handle this? Can you do it? Can you be better than your competition doing this? So it's basically get your feet wet, taste that demand, and also impress. During that internship, it is your time to shine. This is the person you're either going to line up your job with, hopefully, or you're going to go back to for a letter of recommendation for the next thing you're going after. So while you're interning, you've got to work till your body hurts. You want this person to see you're hungry. Let's see, I think also success in your career comes from something that's not material. It's not something you can see or touch. It's about turning inward and finding the positive gifts within yourself. What are you good at? What makes you a better person? And using those positive gifts so when you look in the mirror at the end of the day, you really love that person you see. That was the one thing about law. It was just such an antagonistic field, and you excelled. I felt excelling came from more negative energy. And when I got into sales, again, working with people, communicating with people, maneuvering in and out of cultures, as was mentioned, it was focused on helping others, and it was focused on your positive gifts. And when you love who you see at the end of the day, you can do it so much easier. So, you know, and true success, it's defined by integrity. It's about doing what's right for other people before you do for yourself. Because sometimes you'll do something, and in my case, financial advising, insurance planning, I might make less on this piece of recommendation I make for someone's portfolio. But in the long term, through your honesty, you'll get referrals. That person will stay with you for life. And you'll extract maybe 5 more referrals out of that person. And again, you'll love your job because you'll feel good about yourself. And so when you choose your career, not only do you want to choose something that brings out the best in you, but I really believe directing your career path is like driving a car. You're given a very small rearview mirror because it doesn't matter where you've been, what fortune you've had, all the things you didn't have that the other person had, the pain you had in your childhood, whatever it is that's holding you back. If you stare in that rearview mirror, you'll crash. But what matters is the large windshield in front of you, what you do with that. Where are you now? Where are you going? And focusing on what's ahead and going after it. I think that's really how you use your talents.
I like that car metaphor. I might use it at a graduation. I think I'm going to steal that from you. Les.
I You're going to have to give her some royalties. That's good advice. I mean, that's good advice for all of us. We live in a world that's becoming, where specialization is running rampant, and technical skill is what's desired. And sort of the big contradiction here is that sociology really, unless you study something like, quantitative methods or something like that, sociology is not a highly technical field, and it's not a highly specialized field. It's the opposite, as I was saying before. So that's sort of the contradiction that you kind of got to figure out as you finish your career here and move on beyond this. But again, just to reiterate some of the things that I and others have said, sociology really gives you a foundation, a grounding to do anything you want to do. What's really important is the ability to think critically and see the big picture. I work with engineers, I work with lawyers, I work with a lot of people who are highly skilled and technical people. My first job after graduate school was working with economists. Very skilled microeconomists. They could run circles around me when it came to quantitative methods and running their regressions and all this fancy stuff. But you know what they couldn't do? They couldn't think critically. They couldn't see the big picture. They couldn't plan. They couldn't organize. They couldn't manage. They couldn't deal with people. So these are the things that I either had innately or I learned through my, my studies here at UCLA. So again, if you probably do need to really think hard about what technical skills you have, or what you will develop. But you also really need to hone those critical skills, see the big picture, and develop the other thing, which is we already heard, communication skills. You need to learn how to communicate effectively with others, how to be empathetic, that is, understand where other people are coming from, and communicate both in writing and orally. Those are critically important skills. So I think, again, the critical thinking, seeing the big picture, planning, organizing, managing, dealing with people, and the communication skills are fundamental. If you could do those things and you can master those things, you'll be successful in whatever you do.
Okay. Eydie or Lisa?
Just a quick comment on that. As far as like the technicalities of looking for a job, I wanted to address that. Networking, you mentioned networking, but I can't emphasize networking enough. And at your level, where you're just coming out of school, that's tricky because you haven't been in the working world, you haven't developed your contact base yet. But I would urge you to find out where UCLA alumni work in your field. I mean, if you're, I have to say, just by coincidence, Sunday night we hosted the Dinner for 12 Strangers, which is a program of the Alumni Association here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we had 12 UCLA students like you come to our house. They didn't know each other, we didn't know them. And I was most impressed that each of them knew exactly what they wanted to do when they graduated. I personally didn't, as I mentioned before, so I don't know where you all stand, but for those of you who don't know, or even who do know exactly where you want to go, try to find people in that field that you have some connection to, either directly or indirectly. Either is fine. You know someone, through a family member, know someone that has this position, call them up, send them an email, ask if you can have an informational interview with them. You'd be really surprised at how willing people are to give you, 30 minutes or an hour of their time, especially when you're just starting out. And that is how you begin the snowballing process of figuring out where you want to end up. You meet with one person, you've discovered you like this aspect of the job but not that aspect. That leads you to another contact. You always end a meeting by asking, is there anyone else you know that I should speak with? And then you have another person to talk to, and you ask that person the very same thing at the end of that meeting. And slowly but surely, you're developing your own network. And the network is really key, because really, what you're going to be in the process of doing over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years is figuring out what you're good at, your skill set, and then figuring out which of those skills you really love. And when you find the job that provides a match between what you're really good at and what you really love, then you're going to be really happy in your career. So keep that in mind. Just keep figuring out, okay, I'm good at this, but do I really like doing that? No, okay, let's put that aside. I'm really good at this. Do I love that? I love it. What careers combine these skills? And then, you know, that'll sort of give you focus for those of you who don't already have it at the outset.
I just wanted to add the idea that in addition to the communication and working well with others, what I look for in the area of mental health that is so critical is, are you open to learning new things? I can see what your resume tells me you're good at, but are you open to learning what I have to teach? And so many people aren't, and they cannot convey that. So that would be a really important tip.
And so how do you look for that? How do you assess this?
Well, mostly with questions.
Okay.
Okay, both the questions that I'm going to pose to the prospective intern or employee, and I want to know what they want to know from me. Mm-hmm. Many times when you ask people do you have questions, and their answer is no, I don't have any questions. Find some questions. It's really important, and it tells me so much about how hungry you are to learn new things.
Yeah. Are there others among you who have hired people recently, and how do you assess how somebody is good or somebody is appropriate for what you're looking for? Any among you who have some tips about that?
I think the cover letter is really important. I mean, we've gone to this digital age of, you know, posting your resume online and then just kind of hoping someone discovers you, or you do a search and you shoot your resume over. And as someone who's hired people in my career, you get so many resumes that oftentimes what I look for to distinguish one candidate from another is the cover letter. And it's really time-consuming, and there's a lot of effort that goes into the cover letter, because what you really want to do is explain why you're a match for that position. And each position is different, so that means you have to go through the job description, you have to figure out, you know, what skills you have that they're looking for, and that's when you put into each cover letter. And so each cover letter is different. So if you want to do a mass resume mailing to hundreds of people for a job, forget about it. I mean, there's just too many people doing the same thing right now. And so I think, although people do scan resumes electronically looking for certain skill sets, it still comes down to who's separated themselves from the cover letter. Now, on the resume side, because of the scanning technology, you do need to have keywords in your resume that employers are going to pick up. And the way to do that is find the job listings that you like, find out what keywords they share in common, and then make sure those words are in your resume somehow. And then they'll get picked up when employers are doing a search for you.
And I also assume that they should take off the incriminating pictures on Facebook.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Anything you put online is discoverable.
Yes. Any other advice?
I think longevity on the resume, when you see that somebody bounces around in jobs, they don't stay anywhere more than 2 or 3 months, that's a red flag. And as you reiterated, a dual language. I mean, of course, Spanish, that's really important. And so having another language and showing some stability in your history, not showing that you look like a flake when there's just short periods. So you want to be somewhere for a year or more.
Okay. Other tips?
I just want to make a little observation. I think what you said is very interesting. You talked about it in terms of months, or you want to be in a job for a year, or maybe a little more. Well, when I graduated college, people went into a career and pretty much stayed in that career forever. People might switch once in a while, but by and large, you went to the same company and you stayed there for 30 years till you retired, or you stayed in the same career. Well, nowadays, that's not what happens. People are going to change jobs, change careers, change companies frequently. I don't know if it's every few months, but certainly more so than when I came out of college. But I think it's important that, that if you can't show longevity, you at least show some theme. You have to demonstrate that you have a trajectory and you are building on what you learned before. But I think you're going to find, and probably people who are just in their jobs for with a company for 1 year or two, and then boom, they're somewhere else, and they're somewhere else after that, and somewhere else after that. The world's a lot different now than it was, 30 years ago.
I'd just like to add just a couple of things. I think interdisciplinary work is very important as well. I know I talked to Peter and to Stefan. He said that Stefan is encouraging other types of studies in other departments. Sociology is the entire society, and it encompasses everything. So you need to get exposure from as many different departments, and maybe in graduate school or whatever you want to do, that you can. I just want to plug this book before I finish, Why Nations Fail. It's economics. My daughter is here, and she's a doctoral fellow in applied linguistics. She recommended this book because her friend is at UC Berkeley in economics as a doctoral fellow as well. And it shows you how societies work in terms of inclusive institutions and extractive institutions. And I want to leave you with the idea that you can go out and make the world a better place, and a much better place than it is now. You've got a lot of work in front of you. There's a lot of difficulties, a lot of problems out there, but you can make it a better place. You have the energy and you have the intelligence to do it. And I want you to go out there, visit other countries, see other places, learn another language, find people who you can relate to, and give back to the world as well as getting something for yourself. So.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions, the way that it works is you ask the question, and then I will repeat the question, and everyone, however small they are welcome to ask questions. Sure.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask you two questions. First question is, how typical is your life trajectories for usual sociology alumni? And second question is, I wonder if you would have advised to yourself back when you were young to change the major or choose another one. Thanks.
Okay, so the questions, if I understood them, were how typical is the life trajectory for a sociology major, and what advice would you give yourself if you knew what you know now, if you were still in college? They are very good questions. Who wants to give a shot at it?
On the second question of if I could have changed things, I think a lot of people end up in a different field than the original plan. So I think the main thing is having a plan, and then along your path there might be an offshoot, and keeping your eyes peeled for it. In my case, my parents didn't raise an insurance broker. They definitely didn't want that. So I think the thing is, if I could do it different, maybe I would have interned in sales and learned it earlier. But you don't always plan that path for yourself. So the biggest thing is keeping your eyes open. And I would have changed my major earlier, because I started as a pre-economics business major and didn't find sociology to be it was such a natural fit, but I didn't realize until my junior year I needed to change majors. And so if I could do it again, I would have switched majors earlier, because you lose time in school and then you lose graduation, extend to graduation. So trying to pick the major if you can, if you find you're really loving certain classes, changing the major sooner than later.
Okay. Anybody else wants to comment? Lisa?
Yeah. I'll just respond to the second question, which is, I would not have changed anything. I'm glad I'm not doing geology. I'm happy to be doing sociology, despite the fact that we live in earthquake country.
Okay. Anybody else?
I don't know about the first question, because I think maybe the sociology department has better data on what the graduates have done. I know other teachers who were sociology majors. So, as far as changing majors, I was a pre-med major when I started. My parents wanted me to be a doctor, of course. Most parents do. I don't know, I think. And they said they'd pay for me to go to college if I wanted to be a doctor. So I started in pre-med. And I hit my wall with organic chemistry. And I decided that I wanted to teach because I had had some experiences at the YMCA, volunteering, and at the beach. I liked to surf a lot, and I would teach kids how to do it, and they, the look on their face when they got it was great. And so I think that you're going to have twists and turns as you go, but I think that sociology prepares you for those things because you get a feeling for a lot of different parts of society, and as you get more experience, you'll be able to choose which one you think is best for you, as we've heard.
Yeah, in terms of your first question, I think this panel does reflect the diversity of career trajectories that are possible with sociology. We have had similar panels in the past, and there's just people leverage into many different jobs that at first sight, in some cases, don't have that much to do with sociology. But then if you ask a couple more questions, there's an obvious link in terms of connecting to people, communication, and many of the issues that have been emphasized here as well. Other questions? Yes. So which was the double major that you wanted to do? Okay, so the question is, if you want to do investment banking, would it be a good idea to double major in sociology and math economics? What do you think about that?
I wouldn't mind speaking to that. I think this speaks to the issue I raised earlier about the world becoming more specialized, and the requirement for certain kinds of skills, opposite of what sociology has to offer in many cases. So I think, as we said before, broaden yourself. Whether it's interdisciplinary work, looking at other cultures, internships, opportunities to make a mark for yourself, in the real world. All those things are important. But I think it is good to have under your belt some kind of technical skill. But combined with the kind of critical thinking and broad understanding of society, institutions, people, organizations that you get from sociology. So I think sociology is a great fundamental basis for whatever you want to do in life. But if you think you have an idea that you want to go into one particular field or another, of course it's good to get some skill in that particular field.
Other questions? Yes.
What skills in sociology would you think set you apart from different people that have majored in different fields?
So what skills in sociology are essential for? What technical skills would be preferable and for? Okay, sorry. Which ones of the skills in sociology would set you apart from other people? Anybody? Any thoughts on that?
Well, again, I sort of build on what I said before. I think, understanding institutions, understanding organizations, even understanding people and cultures are things you can get from sociology. Again, sociology being sort of the mother of social sciences, you can study other cultures by studying anthropology and on the third floor still here?
Yes.
Okay, or you can study economics over in Bunch Hall, or you can study, you can become a statistician. If you want to become a demographer or you want to become a quantitative methodologist, you can probably get better training in math or statistics or economics than what you're going to get in sociology. But, again, keep your eyes open and think broadly. And if you need to develop technical skills to help you in a particular career path, you want to go into investment banking, then you got to study finance, you got to study economics. If you want to go somewhere else, you got to, take courses in another field. So, interdisciplinary studies is a terrific idea. But again, I'm going to come back to what I've said and we've all said. Sociology provides you with a good foundation and kind of a broad exposure to, all of the social sciences and the humanities.
I would just say that the major that you choose is really more important in the early stages of your career than it is later. When you just graduate, people are going to ask you that question, what was your major? And they want to figure out whether, where you're going. And once, many of you will probably follow on with graduate degrees at some point, maybe right after UCLA graduation or a couple years down the line. I waited a couple years and then did that. Once I got my graduate degree and a couple years experience after that, it wasn't as important. It was helpful to know that I had a sociology from UCLA, but my business degree took precedent at that point and my business experience. So I guess my message is, don't worry about picking the exact right thing right out of school, because it's probably going to change. And one thing always builds on another. And the nice thing about sociology is that it can change. So you might dabble in something right after school, and then in that experience decide you want to do something completely different, which is fine. And I guarantee you somewhere down the line in your career you'll probably want to change that too. So just keep in mind that it's not a choice that if you make, upon graduation, has to be permanent.
Any other questions? So I think maybe some of you might want to ask some more private questions to the panelists. So I would like to thank them for talking to you today, and then I welcome you. Thank you all. So if there's people who want to ask, want to talk to the panelists, or still need to sign up, please feel free to do so.